Hey guys, it's Joseph again from Intellect Finance. Today we're going to meet up with Anthony Suka from G&S Law Group, and we're going to talk to you about the legal side of purchasing property. Anthony,
Joseph,
welcome.
how are you?
Thanks for coming in, man.
My pleasure.
Take a seat.
Thank you, Joseph. So, Joseph, I understand you wanted to talk to me about contracts.
Yes. So there is a process that's involved. So a client comes to me, we get them a pre-approval, and we ask them not to pay a 10% deposit, only a holding deposit, which is 0.25%, and we ask them to request a 10-day cooling off. They usually only get a 5-day cooling off period.
That's correct. Once they do pay the 0.25% deposit and sign the contract, which is exchanged, you then have a legally binding contract. The importance of that is they're now locked into a contract. The good thing is, under a residential purchase of property, there's a statutory 5 business day cooling off period, which allows them to get out of the contract or rescind the contract within that 5-day period, and they only lose 0.25% of the purchase price.
Okay, so what kind of checks do you do in that 5-day period?
So during that period, what we will do is look over the contract, look for any easements, covenants that may affect any future use or use of the property. If there's any conditions in the contract that need amendment or looking at, or advice in relation to size of the property, we usually recommend a survey be done. If it's strata title, we'll usually recommend that they do a strata report. If it's Torrens title, we'll recommend that they get a building inspector, a pest and building report, which basically checks the building, makes sure that it's not going to fall down tomorrow or there's no major termite infestations. So they're some of the main things that we do during the cooling off period. Sometimes it's not enough time and we can request an extension, but of course the vendor needs to agree to that.
So we get the solicitor to check the contract, which is your job.
Yep.
But we also get a valuation done by the bank, and then we get an unconditional approval.
Yes.
Once we've got the valuation done on the property. Yep. And you've done your job.
That's usually one of our checks also, to make sure that the client's got the unconditional approval. Because if the cool off expires and they don't have the unconditional approval, then there is a risk that they're going into a contract whereby they can't get finance. And we've had this before, where clients proceed against our advice, go ahead with the contract and can't get out, can't get the finance, and then run into all sorts of issues. So it's absolutely crucial that they get that tick of approval from you before they decide to pull the trigger, so to speak.
Which is putting the 10% deposit.
Definitely.
And exchanging contracts.
Yep. So on or before the expiration of the cooling off period, they've got to pay the balance of the deposit. If they can't complete the contract because they haven't got their finance approval or for any other reason, then they risk losing the 10% deposit and other potential causes of action, which I won't go into too much.
Is there a difference between a commercial property and residential property purchases in what you do on the legal side?
Yeah, definitely. With commercial property, there's normally not a statutory cooling off period. I think because the government considers the commercial buyer a more sophisticated investor, they don't have the benefit of that statutory cool off period, whereas residential, unless it's a purchase at an auction, then there's a cooling off period which attaches to any contract, unless the vendor requests a section 66W certificate, which means you're waiving your statutory right to a call off period. Only a solicitor who's acting on your behalf on the purchase can provide that certificate, and they normally don't do so unless they've properly advised you before signing the certificate on your behalf. And even if we're going to give that sort of a certificate, we'll always recommend, look, do you have your unconditional approval? Make sure you have that before you provide the certificate. But there are risks with that they may sell the property, but it's you're better off losing the property than ending up in a contract whereby you can't complete and you lose a lot more money. So.
Okay. Anthony, I just wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the market?
That's $1 million question. It's honestly, everyone's asking that question, and the truth is that there's actually strength still. I mean, from the transactional side, there's still a lot going on, even though the interest rates are where they're at.
Yeah, we're still getting clients buying property coming to us. They want loans to buy property.
I mean, yeah, look, I'm not no expert in the field, but I think it comes down to there's just not a lot of stock. There's issues that we're finding in other areas of practice with builders and the building commissioner and things like that are slowing down production of new apartments. Therefore, stock levels are dropping and competition's fierce. So it's just the wheels keep churning. So.
Well, I mean, we're experiencing a similar vibe as well. So yeah, I mean, it is good to hear that the market's still strong.
Definitely. I mean, I've been looking at some apartments in the inner west just for my superannuation fund that I have with my wife.
Superannuation?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. And I mean, the competition's fierce. It really is. Prices are, there's still growth. Things are still going up. I mean, you've got to get in quick, really. It's a tough market, but it's interesting at the same time to see what the Reserve Bank will do next. What's your opinion on that?
Well, to be honest, I'm hoping that the Reserve Bank drops the rate. I mean, and I have to say we are seeing fixed rates coming down with some lenders. So I'm hoping that's a sign that the Reserve Bank could drop their rate.
That would be great. And hopefully there's a lot more stock that comes on the market. I think that's a large part of the issue as well.
I wanted to talk to you about construction. We've got, a lot of clients in the construction game. So do you handle disputes with construction?
Yeah, no, we do, and there's a lot of disputes, I suppose, in the construction game itself between builders, developers, or buyers and the builder. So yeah, we're both sides of the fence. We deal with a lot of that. But there's also, I'm finding a few issues with these off-the-plan contracts that people are getting themselves into, and they're not properly advised, particularly the sale and land, home and land packages that come with a contract for sale and there's a building contract attached. The buyer can't pick which builder they want and they're stuck with the one that's attached to the contract. And they make it conditional that you enter into the building contract as part of the purchase of the land.
Well, that's why people should talk to a solicitor or a conveyancer before signing the contract.
Definitely.
Okay.
Good advice is key. We've found that sometimes conveyancers can drop the ball and they end up in a situation where there's a dispute, and we've been approached by other practitioners, I won't mention any names, but where we've been asked to assist on files of conveyancing transactions that have gone wrong because there's either someone hasn't picked up on an illegal building or structure on the property that wasn't council approved, maybe subject to a demolition order, or a risk that you inherit that wasn't disclosed in the contract.
You jumped ahead of me because I wanted to ask you what's the difference between using a conveyancer or using a solicitor?
The difference with that, without sort of belittling anybody, is that usually a solicitor's got far more experience in contracts and the dispute side. They've got experience in what unravels once there is a dispute under the contract. So that's the difference between using a conveyancer and a solicitor. I mean, you do save a few dollars using a conveyancer, although there's not much difference nowadays.
So what I'm gathering, that a conveyancer maybe for simple transactions, but a solicitor for something more complicated?
Look, even the simplest of transactions can go wrong, but I mean, some people prefer to use a conveyancer and save a few dollars. It's your own personal interest. I suppose when it does go pear-shaped, you always can refer back to a solicitor. I've got conveyancers that do refer me disputes when things do go pear-shaped.
All right, coming back to where I was talking about, the 5-day cooling off period. So you've checked the contract for the client.
Yes, given it
we've
the
got
okay.
And we've got an unconditional approval from the bank. Then they can go and pay the 10% deposit and exchange contracts.
Unless they've agreed to a reduced deposit, they'll pay the deposit that's been agreed to, usually a 10% deposit.
Yeah.
Then after that,
so it is, because a lot of people don't know that you can request a 5% deposit.
That's correct. You can request. So sometimes people don't have the whole funds, and as you'd know, they can ask for a mortgage that's greater than 80%.
Yeah.
And in which case, if they're doing that, they usually want a reduced deposit of 5% or something less that they can afford, and subject to the vendor agreeing.
We can actually use deposit bonds, so we've got to get permission to use a deposit bond?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And that's a great alternative sometimes, and especially where there's cash flow issues and whatnot. But yeah, following that, once they have paid that deposit, then the next, normally the contract's for 6 weeks. By this time, about 1 week's passed, there's 5 weeks left. We normally make our inquiries with council, Strata, Sydney Water.
And then we've got heading towards closer to settlement. That's when we make sure that the money's ready from the bank, from the clients, and we can proceed to a settlement.
And then the last thing that usually happens just before the settlement, the buyer will tell the buyer to go in just before settlement to do a final inspection to ensure the property.
So what should they be looking out for on the final inspection?
On the final inspection, they should ensure that the property is in the same condition that it was left. Sometimes issues that we've had along the way would be that they've left rubbish in the property. Nothing's been moved, so furniture's still there. So at the end of the day, once settlement's complete, if that hasn't been dealt with before settlement, the buyer ends up stuck with it. So we normally tell them, do the inspection, let us know if there's any issues, come back to us and we can make arrangements, whether it be reduction in the purchase price to allow for the buyer to attend to it, or if we delay settlement as a result. So yeah, there's a number of things to be done before to ensure a smooth sort of settlement. Yeah.
Thank you.
Exciting stuff, especially for these first home buyers.
It is, yes.
Probably the biggest investment they'll make.
Thank you, Anthony, for all that information. It was quite interesting, actually. I just wanted people to have an insight to why people see a solicitor or a conveyancer, what happens on the other side, I guess. And you've given us that insight. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And if I can be of any further assistance, please let me know.
Will do. Some great information there from Anthony. It is very easy to get caught out when purchasing property. So I will put a link below. If you do need his services, you can contact him directly. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
You ready?
Yep. Oh, Musa, you're cruel, man. That's like, he does it on purpose. I know he does it on purpose. Wow, that. Okay, I'm on. Okay.
You're on.
Stop trying to be funny. Musa's trying to be funny again.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some great information there from Anthony. Musa, you're just making fun of me. We don't need to do this. You enjoy watching me do this. I just realised he's getting a thrill out of it. Look, can you hear him laughing in the background? All right.